Today I'm reviewing this 11-inch square recessed light by LZHOME. This is listed as three different color temperatures that are selectable with the LED driver that's included. The box comes very basic, not a whole lot to see here, just a little picture on the box. It measures 15.5 inches by 12.5, and the thickness is 2 inches, so a fairly small package. And we're going to go ahead and open this up and take a look at the light. And what I'm seeing inside here is some foam to protect the edges of the light. We've got some wire nuts and kind of push connectors. I'm personally not a huge fan of either of these. I prefer a Wago style nut, a lever nut instead, and that's probably what I'll end up using. And we're going to go ahead and pull the recessed light out. A little bit of pressure trying to pull this out of here. It's not coming out super easy. I see the LED driver box up here, and get the box out of the way. There are some instructions here, fairly basic instructions letting you know the size of hole you may need to screw it or may need to cut. It's 11 inch, so it's telling you how big of a hole you need to cut, giving you some brief instructions, just one piece of paper, very common electrical installation. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at the LED driver box. Fairly standard fare. This is to me, fairly short connector. I do prefer these a little bit longer. It does have a kind of press and latch here to hold it shut. I personally prefer the screw type. This should be sufficient. You can see the color temperature selection. We have 3000, 4500, and 6000. And the door opens up, and inside you have your three wires, your ground, your neutral, and your hot. The punch outs here, so your feeder comes in, you just push the knockout out. You need to get a little Romex cable clamp connector in here to protect the edge of your wire. I've noticed you pretty much never have those Romex connector clamps included. They do add an extra expense if you don't already have them. They're fairly inexpensive, maybe $1 a piece. I'll probably use one or two on here because I might want to feed off of this light. Again, fairly easy to install. 2 screws. There's no template included, but it's pretty easy to either take a piece of paper to mark those or put this up on a rafter, however you're going to install it. Put the screws in there, or however your installation may work for you. I'm going to take a look at the actual light. There are 4 edge protectors on here. We're going to pull this right out of the plastic baggie. On the back, you can see the clamps here. You see the other end of the driver box. Yeah, this is really short. I definitely would prefer if this was a longer cables all around, but it should be fine. I'm going to be using this as a overhead light in my basement, so it shouldn't be too difficult. So have to keep the short wires into account when you're planning your installation. The lights here, this aluminum, I'm assuming on the back here, it is a little springy. You can hear it making noises as I'm gently pushing around here. That doesn't reassure me necessarily in any way. On the other side, you can see a frosted plastic case on here. I'll go ahead and wire this up really quickly, probably just to an extension cord so we can get an idea of power draw on full light. I do not have a dimmer to test the dimmability of this, and we'll see how the light looks and continue the review from there. One final thing, the actual measurements of the light itself. The thickness of this, it's very negligible. Let's see if we can even get a measurement on here. I mean, you're talking maybe 1/2 inch thick. The panel itself is 11.5 inches square. The frosted portion is about 9 3/4 of an inch square as well. So you do have a little bit of a border on here. It did say 11 inch, so I'm not exactly sure where they're getting their 11 inches from. Like I said, the frosted portion is 9 3/4, and the overall size is 11.5. And as you can see, I now have the light out on my desk. I have the LED driver box spliced into a cord, so I don't have to have this wired into the ceiling, but we can still test it. So I'm going to take this just to connect the driver board. I'm going to plug it into an energy meter, my handy kilowatt. And when I plug it in, for a brief second I did see 3 watts. It looks like it's pulsing every now and then. Let's see. So there's no power being drawn right now, which I wouldn't expect because the light is not plugged in. So if we plug this in, I've got the selector set to 3000 Kelvin for the temperature. We're going to see what the power draw is between the different color temperatures. I do not have this on a dimmer. It's just all the way on or all the way off. We'll go ahead and plug this in. It is a keyed connector, so it can only go in one way. And as you can see, it's quite bright. And I'm seeing 24 watts. Let me just kind of get this out of the way now. So I'm seeing 24 watts on the 3000 Kelvin. We're going to move this to the 4500 Kelvin. Still seeing 23 watts. And now we'll go to what would probably be considered daylight of 6000 Kelvin. And the power draw is remaining the same 24 watts, which is nice. It's very consistent. And we can take a look here. You can see the difference in color temperature here. This is 6,000, 4,500, and finally the 3,000. As you can see, the 3,000 definitely gives us a much warmer glow on this tabletop. And as I cycle up through the coolness, the daylight you can definitely see is cooler. So again, very consistent with the power draw of 24 watts at full power. I feel this light has a lot of brightness to it. It is a fairly large panel. I believe it's just right around 10 inches in size. We'll double check that really quick again. And yeah, about 9.5 inches square for the lighted portion. And again, I'm just blinding the camera here, but it seems like a fairly even light. It does seem to be edge lit. I do see a little bit more brightness on this particular edge than the other 3, but it's overall fairly even lighting on this panel, especially when it's in the ceiling going directly down. If you hit it from an angle, you can see some bright spots on the edge. Seems like a decent light. I will see if I can find a way to put this on a dimmer to see if it's compatible or how compatible it is. It does state it is dimmable, but again, 24 watts is being drawn, which is not a whole lot, and it's quite a bit of light. Overall, I would rate this 4 out of 5 stars.